I have been with all the Venezuelan stuff, although I'm in Norway right now. So kind of like good that I'm not there because of all the violence, but feeling um, frustrated that there's no way that I can help from here. But it's only one more. It's a great example of why we need governance in blockchain and the transparency, reputation layers, and how we could prevent all this. Make it, how is it, like putting hands into results and power, right? I think it's a great example for this. If we only had transparency and decentralization of the power of both, and here we are, right, working on this to make it more mainstream and to make it more accessible for people in these type of situations like in Venezuela. So I'm happy to be here with you guys. It has been some time since the last time, and yeah, happy to see changes in Trusted Seed and how we can evolve for time. And I'll pass it to, I think you guys said Monty was yeah, yeah.
I've already gone. I think it's Ivy who's left.
Yeah. I don't have so many updates. I was sick the past day, so I just recovered yesterday. But yeah, I've been just catching up on my tasks with Common Stack and the Quadratic Accelerator. We might open the application soon. So yeah, that's just my main update. And also want to share that Nena, Griff, and Chris won't be able to join, but we asked them to leave their comments in the document. So passing it back to you, Max.
Yeah, thanks so much. So today we have an unusual board meeting inspired by the comments of the last one. We were processing it, and I guess this time that was a higher level of preparation. I hope so. Today we have like 3 open questions. I hope we can spend a bit of time on those and not presenting them so much, but mostly discussing and brainstorming together. But before we start, like I already saw the comments from Monty and Gideon. Thanks so much, guys. Maffer, Jeff, have you had a chance to check out the document?
I checked. I got the document. I had no comments. Yeah, I checked it out.
I will open it up right now and have a look.
Sure. Just to know, how deep I need to kind of go into this. But yeah, the first question, I don't know if I'll maybe pass the link again here so you have it handy. But the first question is about the restructuring our mission, governance, and narrative. I haven't seen the video Gideon was referenced to, but I will check it just after the meeting. But yeah, where should we start? Are there any questions? Do you feel any strong support or strong objection, or do you is it clear enough why we do it? Could you comment on this?
I'm going to jump in and say I think it's a brilliant idea to start to have this conversation and start to think about restructuring and yeah, revamping what Trusted Seed is and how it operates. And yeah, I think it's a great time to start that discussion. And yeah, it was good to read the document, and yeah, excited to dive into some of that further. I've got some ideas and yeah, things to discuss. But overall, yeah, I think good direction and good time to have the conversation.
Yeah, I'll just echo that. I mean, I think there's parts of this I'm still trying to make sure that I really understand. But the overall direction and the fact that you're looking at these questions of like, what is the real purpose? What is it exactly that Trusted Seed is doing? I think it's so great. And yeah, very happy to see this.
One slightly more radical idea that I've been toying with in my head is what could like a ReFi DAO trusted seed merger look like, or would that even be a good idea? And especially with regards to like the mentorship program, we've got quite a wide reach with ReFi DAO in terms of our social media and all of these kind of things, and that could be a complementary asset. But I don't know, it's just a potential idea, definitely not suggesting that's definitely what should be done, but just thought I'd surface that as something that is something interesting anyway.
About that idea, to be honest, like like somehow coordination or cooperation is like our main motive, and we're always looking into doing more of that. And from my perspective, these board meetings and this group that is here is like the most sustainable thing we had over the last 3 years, just meeting together every month. Of course we work with gardeners, but it was always tied to mostly the budget. Oh, we had budget for region score, we do region score. Oh, okay, we like want to do on conference, we do on conference. But like the people like that are here are the people who were in the core of Trusted Seed all of that time. And what big change happened to my thinking about Trusted Seed? Initially I was doing like lots of communities, and when I joined Trusted Seed at the beginning, I was trying to develop it as a community, but I found out like there was not a lot of like not like a place of interconnection between all of the 360 people. They like the only connection was mostly TEC Hatch that they participated, and there's still like lots of going in the TEC. But if when you say, for example, merging with ReFi DAO, like I also had a conversation with Gideon about like TEC has can use some maybe stewards to support some of the work, and ReFi DAO can use maybe when we do mentorship program, we kind of come in there, to be part of the ReFi DAO, or like merger between ReFi DAO and TEC and so on. So the big change for me coming to that is like coming out of the brand, which unites lots of specialists, like just say, come to us as specialists, pay fees and so on. It's more about like how to become integral part of this key, like 5 or 6 networks.
I just want to add maybe on the operations side of the process of merging Trusted Seed and ReFi DAO. So, but we can go into details more in the next board meeting. But just to give you an idea, because right now our membership process is like per individual. So if we approve this restructuring of Trusted Seed, we also need to update the articles of the association and also the governance, because right now only the gardeners are reviewing the individual applications. But if we approve this restructure, we are proposing that for an organization to be an alliance of Trusted Seed, it's like we're forming a consortium. So the board will be the ones approving the organizations that will be part of the Trusted Seed Alliance. Is that right, Max? I think that's how I understood our last conversation.
Yeah, that's the intention, like to focus on our networks, and like next time, for example, like somehow we come to the idea, or Region Unites would like to join and so on, then we as a board would say, yeah, we trust Region Unite. But then, maybe some other network would, okay, somebody can object, and we would need to decide about it.
I guess one question that's appearing for me is, and I linked a comment to this on the mentorship program as well, but also around this wider vision as well, in terms of like, what is the sustainability strategy, right? Like, I think one of the last board meeting, it was clear that Trusted Seed had, not been making money, and that then obviously can't continue infinitely. So like, yeah, I'm curious, how does this new model address that? Like, would it be that there is kind of like a service organization that's providing services to these different organizations, or like, yeah, how do you envision that working? Or is it, about finding strategic grants for specific things? Or yeah, curious what you're thinking on that front.
Well, that's one of the changes also about restructuring is that somehow it felt before we're doing projects that's like in line with the generation, but sometimes we feel we are doing it for somebody else. Previously we were like, okay, let's do this region score for OP, network or something. And it was usually the motivation behind some grants was, okay, we just need to pay salaries and let's find some opportunity. It lasts almost 3 years now. We lived quarter to quarter, just trying to sustain the salaries for the people. And I think it wasn't sometimes, for example, some project or some activity might not be the best, but we felt like obligation to sustain a particular amount of salaries. And also the projects were not usually board initiated, so the board was like, okay guys, you do the good work, but it's rarely connected with the board priorities. It felt like, it was like, okay, nice direction, but so now probably what will happen in Q4, we will have much less of the salaries, and I imagine to really radical minimum in that kind. But I'm thinking that through this quarter, through this Q3, we could, build around the board directions, so to allow the board to define what should be done, and then align our funding strategy to that one, not trying to just, keep people on the payroll. That's what I think.
Nice. So if I'm hearing that correctly, essentially, yeah, dissolving the current structure and almost just keeping the board as a way of sense making, okay, what opportunities are there within these various networks of which we're all kind of representing or here on the board, and say, okay, there's a real opportunity here with this project, with ReFi DAO, Celo, and token engineering columns. We've got some resources for it. Can Trusted Seed come in and support? And, then there's, opportunity to get paid for certain bits of work within that that's delivering value. As part of a defined project within the kind of network guided by the board. Is that kind of what I'm hearing?
Yeah, I'm seeing that as a board, we brainstorm some ideas, and around those ideas, some committees can occur. Okay, there is a project of say mentorship between Celo and ReFi DAO and TEC and Region Network maybe, and then we kind of find the ways. Okay, what are the opportunities? What is the grant, or how can we do this? And then we dedicate a person that would be the best to support this particular project.
I think it's an excellent direction. I like that idea a lot.
Yeah, and just adding one quick point that we'll also expand a little bit more later on, is that with current low operational capacity, of Trusted Seed capacity, to compensation and so on to the end of the year, as we already had the commitments from grants with the mentorship program, and also saw that there is interest in the program from the different projects and organizations of Trusted Seed's closed network. We're basically funneling and focusing most operations and efforts this quarter on the mentorship program. And then with that also we can also understand what could be, I think a little bit more, what could be some more reliable funding streams for the program, for instance. But until now, there have been a lot of open possibilities and a lot of different initiatives going on at the same time, basically. So it would have been kind of harder to think what would be this revenue streams and so on.
Yeah, no, I definitely think cutting back all of the projects that were going on and just focusing on one or two, and also just aligning with what the priorities of the existing projects that we've already got, like you've outlined, I think is a good way to go. And I am curious, I guess, with the mentorship program that being chosen, as the one Trusted Seed project that you are taking forward. I think I saw in the doc that was to do with it being voted as one of the highest priority projects in that regard. Was there some other thinking there? And yeah, also curious about how that in itself can be a sustainable model. Because unless you kind of get in big sponsorship for it, like, yeah, who's, I don't know. Yeah, I'm curious how that works, or if that's just going to be a kind of volunteer-based thing, or.
Cool. Yeah, that's a good question. So the reasoning behind like focusing on that, yes, there was a point of like the interest from the Trusted Seed members overall. So we've been kind of exactly on the point of having like 300 and something like members. We've been trying to see like what would be programs that would naturally kind of like engage members to participate in them and so on. And we saw that the mentorship was the one that had like bigger interest in the community, and also a lot of potential to engage with these other close communities, projects, and partners. So for instance, if you see on the mentorship program structure, you have different tracks. And then these tracks are all pretty much associated with other organizations or like specific fields. So being more concrete, for instance, we got some funding from grants from the TC round on GD20, if I'm not mistaken. And with that, we're having the token engineering track. So basically streamlining the funds from that to a token engineering track. We're doing the same thing with the Celo track from what we got as like the bonus matching, like from the, I think also GD20. So we found the mentorship programs as something quite flexible to integrate basically like different interests from different organizations. And like having these different interests, let's say in this case, structured as tracks and so on, it facilitates quite a lot also like cross-pollination between these. So let's say we have like on one hand, the engineering track, on the other hand, the Celo track, and on the other hand, the climate track, like climate work or climate, something track. The idea is exactly to cross-pollinate like people and from these kind of like different contexts. So that's one point. And from funding, then coming back a little bit more concretely. So yeah, until now we've been getting like small quantities from grants, but considering Trusted Seed's like financial situation and so on, that would basically be needed to fund like the operations of the program, basically. But while we do, so the idea is basically to run one pilot cohort in this year. So we already are considering that with current Trusted Seed's budget, basically. And then with that, we can like understand if like what could be more sustainable models to run like follow-up cohorts, but also our commitment basically that we had would be like to have like this one cohort and so on. So we can try it out basically.
Got you. That makes sense. So you've already got some grant funding to run the operations, and then can run it and learn from there, and bring all those networks together in a way that positions you guys there. So that, I think that makes sense.
Any other considerations about the restructuring?
Well, one thing that I think would be really I'd be very interested in drilling more into is this idea of the alliances and what that would actually look like from a program perspective. Like, if that really is the focus of Trusted Seed, then what are the programs that actually bring that to life? Like, how would the mentorship program plug into you already talked a little bit about that, Luis, like how would that plug in? But is that really like the most important thing? If the focus really is on trying to kind of build the relationships between individuals in these networks, what does that look like? And then I think the other thing is, then that naturally brings up some interesting things, like the reputation group is like, what are the ways that the regen networks would come together, and maybe if they're not doing the exact same approach to reputation, at least like there are ways for interoperability to happen. And it's kind of like a strategy coordination or like in the US, we have this crazy Project 2025 thing that's going on. I don't know if you all have heard about this, but it's basically kind of the right wing, the far right has gotten together and kind of coordinated their strategies. And I don't know, I can't remember who pulled that together, but there's probably some entity that is behind that, kind of like helping to build those connections. And I just don't know enough about, I've been so focused on token engineering over the last couple of years that my focus on ecological stuff is kind of like I've lost focus on that. So I don't know, and I would be very interested in hearing, Monty, in particular, your perspective on like, is there really a need for that, or is that already being fulfilled through informal relationships and things like that? Because the last thing I'll just mention is, the TEC, just as an example of kind of like a strategic initiative, the TEC could, depending upon how its token holders go, the TEC could just be like a trade association. We're just about token engineering, and that's what it is, right? There's another version of the TEC where, if the regen movement came in and basically bought up most of the tokens, where the TEC would become really just a vehicle for building, for building the mechanisms to make the regenerative vision possible, right? And that's really its focus, but it depends on, so that's like an example of a strategy where a group like this could come in and say, you know what, we think it would be great to like build this network of folks, build the connections, and then have some of these strategic objectives that we're trying to do where we're going to secure certain assets and we're going to, that kind of stuff. But that's the stuff that to me is like very exciting. And Monty, yeah, I'd love to hear your thoughts in particular.
Yeah, as you were speaking, an idea sparked that I'd love to share that I think could be interesting to consider and potentially bring a lot of these pieces together. So one of the things we outlined in the Celo public goods budget is we earmarked 1.25 million Celo to apply for Optimism's season 6 intents to match that with 1.25 million OP. So that's what, like a $3 million pool. We're publishing that proposal over the coming weeks to see if we could get that money. And the idea from that is to extend what we've started to do with the regen coordination round and also the real world builders on Celo round, essentially launching into, as Celo is joining the super chain, Celo being the home for real world builders and, climate tech. And, essentially if we get that budget, we've got a $3 million, dollar value budget. We maybe divide that into 5 sort of sub programs that are all focused on a different segment of real world builders. And that's the kind of space. And as part of that, there'll be about 100K operational grant. And I think part of the insight with these grant programs is instead of just having a thing where you do a grant round, you spray the money out, and then you just kind of like onto the next grant round or onto the next thing. Like a lot of the projects might need like support of like saying, oh, how do I actually integrate with Celo? Like, how do I track my milestones? Like, how do we, and there's a lot of work with Thank Arb and Thrive Protocol, who have developed a kind of basically a whole group of like validators who come in and like validate that milestones have been completed, that certain actions have been completed, and almost doing that follow-up work. And they've, developed a whole platform around that. And so I'm thinking, what could that look like for, this mentorship program almost to be tying into that in terms of like, okay, we've just allocated, 2 million of tokens to all these projects and all these people, we actually maybe need some mentors to come in and support those projects, to keep track of milestones, to provide some of the operational support for this big grants program. And maybe that type, and then we've got the expertise of say, okay, this project really needs some token engineering support because they're launching a token and, blah, blah, blah. Okay, well, we've got the expertise to come in and support that project and make the connection happen there. And again, that kind of links into sort of the matchmaking idea and mentorship. And actually, yeah, aligning that with a big grant program that's also in regen means there's money behind it, and it kind of and it's all in the super chain and Celo kind of again. And yeah, no, I just feel like that could bring all these pieces together in a way that could be really interesting.
Yeah, resonate a lot with that, and for sure projects like recently I was supporting this project from Ukraine, which is like an eco village network. So they have like 12 locations across the Ukraine and a variety of projects. They work with like much more serious money from grants and so on. They do like real ecological work at the places and also host refugees and so on. But I spent like many hours onboarding them to Gitcoin around, and the anxiety they had with like all of this, like it's just like Gitcoin, but there's other guy, Soto, Earthist DAO, he's more savvy, but he can't, he is on the next level of the needs. Where he can get he already got some grants, but we were working with him on getting him a crypto loan, so he has like a valid business, he has hemp production, but he needs some equipment, and in Turkey there's high inflation and so on. But I was spending just like many hours just drafting the terms with him, because he is not a financial expert and not am I, but I'm, but how else would he come to get this, he knows his stuff, but there's a lot of there's such support needed. And overall, like when we were initially on one of the strategic sessions with the board, when we were thinking about the reputation layer, there was this idea that, for example, you were a big part of the ReFi DAO, but then somehow you're identifying the opportunity which is in the other network, in TC or in Regen network. And unless you're like really well connected, you almost start from the scratch, you don't know, people don't know you and so on. And the idea is like maybe with the Regen score or something like that, your reputation in one place can transfer you to the other place and give you more trust, maybe you will be already on the next level. So I think we have a lot of talent in our networks, but the questions of trust, like also the same with this idea with Umberto, one of our members, has about the decredit, decentralized credit, is that how can we enable more peer-to-peer loans? And I guess it's like it's not only about the on-chain data, it's sometimes about density of the connection between people. Like if you like in cooperative funding, one of the biggest influences on the decision of funding, if I know this person and I trust and like this person, that would mean more than just an abstract score, in my decision. So I think this kind of work opportunities and funding opportunities in between of people of our network is somewhere I'm looking for to develop. Do you feel we should move to the next topic?
What is the next? I'm curious what the next topic is. I did have something to share around what we're building, or what Luke and crew are building around Superchain accounts and Prosperity Passport. But I'm happy to share that when the time is right. But I don't want to disrupt an agenda.
I'll make an intro to the topic, and that would be a good time for you to share, because well, for us, somehow it was the first time we got the clear goals of our board partners, you could say, like we could understand them before preliminary, but we never really, like, maybe I ask Reef sometimes, but this time was the first time when we're like, hey, what are you looking to do, and then think what we should do about it. So in the document, you can see what answers I got from different networks. And some of them have links to read with like more extensive information. Some of them might be less clear. Like I got this kind of table where like what ReFi DAO can do with TC, what ReFi DAO can do with Regen, and so on. But so far I've seen it didn't trigger already, people didn't start right initially. Maybe that's something to think about, or maybe some format of a workshop needed. But maybe it would be a good start to just maybe speak a bit about, especially I know Monty added some things new even to me, so like bioregional builders or something. So maybe I'll pass to you to tell a bit more about your plans for H2.
Yeah, sure. Happy to do that. And then, yeah, I guess that's where it starts, mapping each of those four members, what we're actually planning to do for H2, and then that's seeing where the potential areas of overlap are. So yeah, I mean, I could share my screen maybe, or just talk it through, or I don't know. Let me just talk it through actually. So, I mean, real briefly, I mean, I've kind of got it there, but we're obviously the Regen Coordination Program, bringing together ReFi local nodes, Greenpill chapters, and Seller regional DAOs into that kind of network nation concept. And yeah, obviously raising the funding rounds, etc. But also the kind of, yeah, collaborative infrastructure development, because there's bits of tools and technologies that we can, you know, deploy across all of those networks that have that impact, and rather than just building in silos, build across those networks. So that's the kind of Regen Coordination Program, and yeah, the main next steps of that is going to be developing the impact tracking integration with Karma Gap, and then the retroactive funding round that Gideon kind of mentioned, that flow as well, and we're working together on building that similar flow with TEC. So already that's one area that we can fill in the box because we're already doing that collaboration. So that's cool. And then the other thing, I will share my screen for this one, is around Superchain accounts. And so I got the debrief from Luke this morning. Luke and the crew at Superchain Eco are building this application called, yeah, Superchain accounts. It's built on Safe. It's a smart account, and essentially it allows you to link multiple wallets of yours in there and kind of aggregate those wallets. And the main functionality that I think is, yeah, interesting is around, yeah, you've got these collection of badges, right? And so it's kind of similar to Regen Score in that sense of like, okay, across all of the super chains, oh, you've got all of the, you know, how many transactions that you did, or whatever kind of badge you can think of coming up with. You know, you can have those badges in there. And that starts to develop up your identity and reputation. Obviously, you can have like a profile picture and your address on there, and start to kind of develop the leaderboards of that, and etc. And then also connecting into various apps, which can then natively be accessible within that smart account. So what we just discussed doing is essentially forking this to build. So this is going to be deployed on Optimism in the coming weeks. Building a version of this on Celo, and then essentially curating a bunch of badges that are like, okay, these are all the badges that are relevant to Celo, but also these are all of the ReFi integration. So, oh, you can make a loan on Ethic Hub, you can engage in Impact Market, you can do all of these other on-chain regen actions. Each of those is a badge under the kind of prosperity passport kind of idea. But then ultimately what that feeds into in the longer term is you then have like a passports tab, right? And then it becomes infrastructure for any community to start launching a passport. So ReFi DAO can launch a passport. And oh, what does that mean? It means if there's a bunch of badges that are related to ReFi DAO that if you collect signify a membership in that community, we can have our own kind of address system and profile picture. Similar can Celo, similar can Trusted Seed, similar can Greenpill. And then ultimately you can then aggregate, you know, those communities. So then I could go on the ReFi DAO page and I can see all of our local node communities. And within then you can see the members of each of those communities and analyze all of their on-chain data, because now they've got all of the badges from the other things. So we're like taking a practical example, imagine like ReFi Colombia. ReFi Colombia has their page. They can say, okay, each of our members of ReFi Colombia, if you have this badge, you're a member. And then we can see what are all of the on-chain activity of all of the regens in Colombia. You know, what badges do they hold? How can we then do quests and incentivize certain activities? And so I feel like this as an infrastructure is a pretty interesting play. Obviously, Optimism is putting funding behind this. Celo will then put funding behind this to build the prosperity version that we'll build, and then it will all kind of link together for this new kind of identity, reputation, passport infrastructure for the superchain. So I'm quite excited about that in terms of what that unlocks for ReFi DAO and just the whole ecosystem, but it solves a lot of the problems we've been having at ReFi DAO in terms of how do we actually aggregate all of this data from all of our community and like actually have this kind of membership program without just building another siloed product like, oh, it's the ReFi passport and we have to maintain all of that and maintain all of the badges. I think you guys ran into that problem with Regen Score, right? If it's part of this larger infrastructure that the chains are going to want to invest in, and then other communities can build, and now any community can launch a passport and and register their members and drive on-chain activity in a regen direction, I think that's a pretty cool cool idea. So yeah, pretty excited about that project, and yeah, that's going to be one of the big focuses coming up. And yeah, final two things I mentioned. I don't know, actually, maybe I'll just pause there, but I'll real quickly say the other two things because those aren't, and then I can shut up. Obviously, yeah, I'm already mentioned the kind of big real world builders grant program with Optimism that we're applying for funding for. So there's that. And then the two other things, we're doing some work with Open Civics around bioregional development, and Scott is leading that, Scott Morris, with Open Civics, looking at bioregional X Web3 mechanisms. And I thought I put that there because I think that aligns obviously with what Regen Network is doing. And we have all these RefiDAO local nodes and Greenpill chapters that fit into different bioregions across the globe. And when we start to talk about bioregional finance facilities and quadratic funding for bioregions and all this kind of stuff. And that also links to the kind of next one, which is this People's Playbook, which is kind of like a toolkit of again saying, okay, this is how you can do this regen action in your local community, like plant trees with Sylvie protocol or get a loan through Ethic Hub, and really creating really detailed documentation such that any local community member or person around the world can just see what different regen things they can do with Web3, and then have the knowledge to actually go and implement that. And then again, once they've completed said, planted a tree with Sylvie network, that can then be a badge, which then fits into the passport system. And, we're tracking that and adding that to someone's project node or just personal identity or whatever. And so again, Scott is building that kind of with Open Civics in a very cross-network collaborative kind of way to build this kind of generalizable toolkit for how to do all these different regen things in local communities through Cosmo local networks. So yeah, that was a whole bunch there. Sorry, I hope some of that made sense. But that's basically the full scope of of what's going to be on my focus over the next half year, or certainly that's how it's aligning right now. Cool. And I guess maybe it might make sense for Gideon to go next and unearth what the same thing is with TEC. And I don't know. Yeah.
Sorry, I have a quick question to Monty. So we're checking the region coordination eligibility criteria and we saw that it's for a project to participate, we need a nomination. So I don't know, maybe I'm not updated into the about the process. I don't know if Trusted Seed can be nominated, if there's a possibility for Trusted to be nominated in the context of providing support in the prosperity passport. I don't know.
I think we set the eligibility criteria already, and the idea was, mainly targeted at ReFi local nodes, Greenpill chapters, Seller regional DAOs as the primary kind of vehicle. We did have this additional clause in here, which was each network can nominate up to 3 additional affiliated projects or that are providing support services. We've basically already nominated what those projects are. And if we had more nominations and, in the future, I think what we should have done is had a kind of proposal system for, Trusted Seed has a proposal for what work they want to do that supports the regen coordination. And, we approve. But the timeframes for this GG round were so tight. We just had to kind of Gideon knows this as well. It was post the forum post and get the funding. And it was oh shit, now we're literally accepting applications in 2 days. So we ran with this nomination process, which, but in the future, that could definitely be an option. But also, with this whole super chain accounts and some of the projects I've mentioned and the grant programs, there will be significant, funds becoming available, if we're successful in that in terms of from grants from Optimism and Cello and we'll have resources available. So when the work scope aligns and when there's, something that it makes sense to Trusted Seed to bring them in and there's, defined scope of work, then that's definitely, I think, definitely on the table.
Okay, so to Gideon then.
Sure. So first of all, that's really cool. The badges, actually, I really want to follow up on that, Mona, because that might actually scratch some of the itches that we have in terms of reputation. I could see that working pretty well. So for the TEC right now, as I mentioned at the beginning, it feels like we're at kind of an inflection point where, we've been kind of going like this, and the TEC was a little bit wobbly for a little while. Like we launched with like this incredible launch and all this amazing, like work and lots of engagement. And then as the funding started, like as we started to see that, like, wow, we're spending really heavily right now and there's no income. And we just had to cut, so we really cut, and then we just focused. And Gitcoin really helped us to kind of like basically leverage our funding in ways so it could go further, with matching and all that kind of stuff. And I feel like now, and then we got the OP funding early this year, retro funding, and that gave us some stability. So now we've been able to hire some more folks. We've got two new people who are doing a great job. Jade Klein's doing a great job. She's our programs lead. And we have another person who's on part-time, who's kind of taken on the work that Ivy's doing. Her name's Monica, and she's running our round. So what this is enabling us to do is, now that we've kind of stabilized, we're saying, what do we need to do proactively? It's kind of like what Trusted Seed, the inflection point there, like, okay, now what do we want to be when we grow up, And for us, I think what we're realizing is that token engineering is this term that, maybe people here on this call throw around, and people in the token engineering, like, it's a very small group of people who if you look at Web3 in general, token engineering is not a term that most people use. And so our focus for this next year, at least, is about trying to drive awareness for what this field really is, and not do it very broadly, not go across Web3 and try to do it, but really pick a chain, pick the super chain. That's what we've decided, because we migrated over to OP mainnet last year. So pick that as a place where we can just really focus and see if we can build not just awareness, but build some demand for the idea that trustworthy systems are a core component of what the super chain should be around. Like the law of chains that is undergirding the super chains. Like, what if trustworthy systems was like one of the core planks in that? Like, what would that look like? And so how do we go about doing that? Well, part of it is we're going to be stepping up our communications efforts and really trying to target it in the super chain. But the other thing is, the best way to do this is to find some projects that really can have impact and demonstrate impact in super chain. So that is what we're really trying to do. And this whole design for this quadratic funding round on Gitcoin, and then following up with the retro round that we're running later in the year, is basically the only projects that will be eligible for the retro round will be those who were participating in the quadratic funding round. We'll be using tunable quadratic funding again, and this time the people who will be getting boosts in our quadratic funding round are not just token engineering experts, but we're actually boosting OP delegates and OP badge holders. So this will help to kind of like get the OP community involved in like picking some of these projects up front. And then we're still putting together what our retro round is going to look like exactly. And I'm hoping, Monty, you're going to be able to help us with some of that, like just figuring out how to do this. But the focus there is really like, what is the impact, And I think that we're going to start with mostly, like, what are the milestones and what are the deliverables? Like, just keep it really simple to begin with. In my last job, I spent a lot of time working on impact analysis, and like, I know that stuff pretty well, and it's hard. It's really hard. Like, I think Web3, we kind of talk about this stuff, but it's like, there's like a whole sector in the nonprofit world that just focuses on this, and they're really good. Like, they have all these models and things like that. So we're going to start very simply. But that's going to be the focus. And then the other thing that's I think particularly relevant, two things that are I think relevant here. One is reputation systems. We know that it's so important for our voting. Like if Token Engineering Commons is going to be the best capital allocator for finding great token engineering projects, like reputation is just so important. And so right now we have some proxies for that. For our tunable quadratic funding, we use the Token Engineering Academy and their the NFTs that they issue when somebody passes one of their courses. So that's really been good. We use the Token Engineering Commons token, the TEC, as a proxy for it, and we have some other ones. But we know that this is going to be so important for us, like figuring out how to crack this nut of like who knows about token engineering, right, down to nitty-gritty details. And then the last thing is just that Nate Sweets, I don't know how many of you know him here, but he pitched a bunch of Green Pill episodes and got selected. Owaki picked it as one of the episodes that I think we'll be doing in like November, where the focus is going to be token engineering, regenerative token engineering. So and really focused on local projects. So I think there's a lot of potential to collaborate here on that. And even, one of the other things just that might be relevant to that is we're kind of, Monty, we're thinking about Celo as part of this, as it migrates over to the super chain. Like there's a really interesting opportunity to maybe even say super chain, token engineering on the super chain, like trustworthy systems is really important, but maybe even just say Celo, next year, try to figure out how we can maybe just focus on one of the basically Celo as opposed to like Base or somebody else, and just say, let's see if we can make some noise there and actually highlight what that might look like to build trustworthy systems in Celo. So that's just that's kind of where we're at right now. I do think the last thing I'll just say is that there is this question right now about like, what is the real purpose of the TEC, right? We know it's advancing the field of token engineering, but there is this deeper question, I think, which is like, to what end? Is it really just to make this field accelerate? That would actually be a great end in and of itself. Or is it something else, right? Is it to build communities, like build a set of tools that communities, like if we're really heading to this crazy world that many people are thinking we're headed to, where network states are, like the key to survival and thriving, how do those network states ensure that they can trust the tools that they're using? And I think that, token engineering is actually a pretty interesting lever for that. So I'll stop there.
Okay, as we're almost at the top of the hour, maybe I'll suggest to do a closing round with like your feedback and suggestion about what would you like to see next in terms of our work together. I already made some notes to the table, hearing from you, and it was amazing. Like even with we didn't have Nana and Griff, but we had so much intersection just between ReFi-DAO and TC. That's amazing. So that's a lot for me to think about and think about where our stewardship should be of support. Thank you so much for this, and yeah, I'll pass to Monty.
Just checkouts. Yeah, I'm really grateful for this call. I think it's been a really great board meeting, and yeah, really exciting to hear Gideon's updates, and yeah, feeling a deep sense of alignment and excitement for the opportunities and all of the evolving directions of Trusted Seed, TEC, ReFi-DAO, Celo, Superchain, all these entities, which is definitely where I feel home in this ecosystem. And so yeah, grateful for that. I'll pass it on to Luis.
Amazing. Thank you, Monty. Yeah, pretty happy to see the direction of things that are going together with feedback, like from board members, close communities, and so on. completely amazing to see like so many progress like in different sites, like with the super chain accounts, like from GC and so on. Yeah, also looking forward to having more. I'll see from my side, for instance, like I can write some more things about the mentorship program and do also a little bit more acing. Would love, for instance, to get like other feedback as well. Nina, for instance, Chris, like weren't able to join, so would also be good to get their feedback as well. So yeah, happy about things overall, and that will be it from my side. Thank everyone. Then I'll pass it to Gideon.
Just a quick, sorry to interject, but I'd love to leave some comments in the mentorship program plan Notion document, but I couldn't seem to leave a comment with the current permissions.
Okay, maybe.
So just highlighting that. But yeah.
Cool. Thank you for letting me know.
Yeah, just very quickly, I'm very excited. I think it feels to me like there's a fire that's starting to grow right here. Like there's something really exciting that is emerging, and that feels really exciting to be just even here and be a part of it. I will pass to Ivy.
Thanks, Gideon. Yeah, and I'm also happy to see that the tracks of the mentorship program are actually focused on what the board members represent, like these projects. We can see that we are I'm happy that we are working closely together this quarter. And yeah, and I'm also curious, maybe in the next board meeting we can hear from also Jeff's projects, BCRG and the inverter network. And also maybe if Nena can join, we can also hear from her and see where Trusted Seed can also support in this project. So yeah, that's all. Passing it to
You might be on his other call.
I pass it to you.
Hey, sorry guys, my yeah, my internet is really bad for some reason. So am I coming through okay?
Yep.
Okay, cool. Yeah. Sorry, I haven't been as engaged as I would like to be in this call, but I have been following the discussions, and I think this is actually a really great direction. I love to see the focus on the interstitial, and I felt this in so many different organizations that I've been a part of, that like the focus turns internal rather than external. And I think treating this board as like not even the board, but the Trusted Seed as a space between these active communities and defining more specifically which active communities these things are kind of coming together between. In a lot of my experience in this space, it's sort of the convergence of three things. It's like money, groups, and context. You know, when you have a couple of groups who are coming together, there's funding for a specific thing, and there's a context in which to, you know, build or model or experiment or explore. I think that has seemed to be a, you know, sustainable, if, you know, dynamic way of getting people paid, finding use cases and building small, you know, POCs that can then potentially scale up, you know, solving near-term problems for multiple groups. So I think this is a great direction. I think these communities are a fantastic place to start because they have a lot of this innovation. They need, you know, cohesion between them as well. So it really strikes me we're moving in a good direction with this. So yeah, happy to hear all the conversations, and yeah, hopefully I'll be more able to participate in the next call. Thanks, everybody.
Maybe to Muffer. Muffer, are you with us? Maybe to Eunice then.
Thanks. I had some issues the very last part of this meeting with the internet connection, but maybe I can recheck the recording to double check what we discussed. And yeah, I'm happy that you provided so much good insights. I think Trusted Seed is taking all their assets they have in order to create the most impact possible in the way we can leverage our data for doing that. So that's the idea, and with all your comments, that can be possible because we can polish it collegiate vision and trying to bring the best of all the efforts we are doing right now as gardeners, and of course as you as part of the board as advisors or directly engaged with your role. So thank you all, and I will pass it to you, Max, or if Maffer, you are there, it is your turn to shine. Back to you, Max.
Yeah, okay, team. Thank you so much for today, and let's continue over the chat. And
Awesome. Thanks so much, Max and team, for putting this
Yeah.
together as well. I know you must have taken a bit of effort to put that doc together and the preparation, but it makes a big difference. So yeah, thanks a lot. Grateful for everyone. Cheers.
Thanks, everyone. Bye-bye.
Everybody.
Bye.